Hi, I'm Tim of the 1916 Company, and this is How To, our series where we wind our way through the world of watches. Today, how to fit a watch to your wrist. Now there's two parts to this. One, know your wrist. Two, know your watch. Wrist first, because fit comes first. In order to fit a watch to your wrist, you have to know what kind of wrist you have. That means shape and it means size. So let's start with the basics. Oval wrists and round wrists. You probably know which one you have right now. An oval wrist is going to be a better match for a watch that's borderline sized, because being broad and flat, it can better accommodate a broad watch. If your wrist is round, you want to be a little bit more conservative with your size and size down, make smaller assumptions. Now the other thing is you need to take some measurements, and there's two ways to do this. You need to know the circumference around your wrist, but you also need to know the total distance across your wrist. We're going to measure both. So let's go to the tape, and by the tape, of course, I mean the measuring tape. What we've got here is a simple tailor's tape, and this is exactly what you want. So the first thing I'm going to do is I am going to take the tape right here, I'm going to put it on my wrist, and then I'm going to go all the way around. I'm going to make sure that at first I keep it nice and taut. And so I'm going to overlap, and you can see right there, my wrist is 17 centimeters circumference, because 300 minus 17, we get 283. Now here's the other thing. You want to back off a centimeter. You want to make sure that you give yourself a little bit of extra slack, room to breathe, room to maneuver, because if you pull your watch super tight on the wrist, you're going to wind up incredibly uncomfortable. So just remember, when you do this, give yourself a little bit of slack, back off 1 centimeter from whatever you measure. That way you can be assured of comfort. Now the other thing that's important to know is how broad is your wrist. Best way to do this is to get a digital caliper, something you're gonna need anyway if you're shopping watches, because you want to know unpublished numbers like thickness and lug-to-lug dimension. A lot of times the only way to do that is to take the measurement yourself. So since you've already got one of these off of eBay for maybe 20 bucks delivered to your door, let's put it on the wrist and see how broad my wrist is. Now I can see that my wrist is 55 millimeters across. So 55 millimeters is where I start, but it's not going to be the width of the watch that I can wear. What you want to do is you want to take whatever measurement you get in terms of wrist width, and then you want to make sure that the watch itself is about 5 millimeters narrower than that. So remember, just as you're going to add 1 centimeter to whatever wrist measurement you get circumferentially, you're going to add basically 2.5 millimeters of clearance on each side of your wrist. So back off 5 millimeters from whatever measurement you get. I should not wear a watch that's more than 50 millimeters from end link to end link or lug to lug. That is how you size your wrist. But remember, try before you buy. Never buy a watch without wearing it, and if you do, make sure you have right of refusal for no other reason than uncomfortable or improper fit. So jumping into the fitting of a watch by measuring a watch, there are 3 factors: size, shape, and strap or bracelet. Let's start with the basics, size. Taking a look at the IWC Big Pilot's watch, it's everything its name implies. 46 millimeters in diameter, it wears like 46. Now round watches tend to be very true to their rated size, so the only consideration here is going to be the span of the lugs, which is 56.5 millimeters. This is a big watch, it's going to require a big wrist, but take it true to size. 46 sounds huge, and when the case is round and the lugs are broad, it's going to wear exactly like the rating implies. Let's go now to shape. Shape's really important because when you're dealing with a non-round watch, whether it's a tonneau, rectangle, or square, it's going to wear a little bit bigger than its rated size. But still, every watch is an individual. Let's take the Vacheron Constantin Harmony and examine a tonneau. Now this is a pure tonneau case. Taking a quick look at the watch, it's only rated as 40 millimeters, which isn't that large at face value, but then you realize that it's almost 50 millimeters from lug tip to lug tip, so you kind of see where I'm going with this. It's going to wear large. Throwing it on my wrist, which is 16 centimeters, you can see that it fills up the whole wrist. That's what you get with a tonneau case. You need to think of this as more of a 42 or a 43 millimeter watch, because that's exactly how it's going to sit. But just because a watch is non-round doesn't mean it's condemned to wear large. There are cases where a watch, round or non-round, can be lugless. And that's what we have right here with the Patek Philippe 5738. The Golden Ellipse, it's 40 millimeters from top to bottom. That is lug-to-lug, which means that you've got a watch that literally has no lugs. The strap is underslung, and this watch can wear on even the most petite of wrists. Men, women, even children. Granted, that is quite a gift for a child, but the watch would fit. My point is, you've got to be careful to recognize that each watch is individual. Try it on before you buy. In all cases, try before you buy is dogma for watch collectors. But also keep in mind that if you have doubts, even if you're trying it and you're not quite sure, measure. Using a set of digital calipers, you can at least get an objective measurement. So if you want to later go back and cross-compare with other watches you're shopping, you'll have a little booklet of measurements and you'll know for sure instead of trying to remember how the watch fit. You'll have a number. That said, even if you have a round case, you might find that the fit varies based on the bracelet or the strap. Let's talk about straps first. Now, most straps are quite flexible. Going back to the Big Pilot, look at this. Perfect flexibility. You can pull it straight down out of the lug. But with this Omega Speedmaster Solar Impulse, all of a sudden we've got an integrated strap. An integrated strap gives you a little bit of a fight. The integrated strap means it conforms to the edge of the case and it closes the gap. So there's not a lot of ability to pivot or flex. As a result, if I've got a small wrist here, this strap is going to be flexing and flaring out and fighting me. So this watch needs to be considered larger. Think of this as a watch that's going to wear 54, 55 millimeters across the wrist, and you have a really good sense of how it's going to fit you. So keep in mind, the strap, if it's integrated and snug tight to the case, it's going to add effective size. The same is true with the bracelet, however. Taking a look at this Audemars Piguet Royal Oak Jumbo, it's got a characteristic that all Royal Oaks historically have had, which is that it wears larger than its rated diameter. This on paper is 39, which would be a little bit small by modern standards. But once you get to the rigidity of the bracelet, see how it flares out? See how it's got a curvature around its edge? It's going to go right to the edge of the small wrist. These little intermediate plots, the outer links on each side, 52 millimeters across the wrist. And that 52 millimeters is now going to put this in the league of a watch that's maybe 41, 42 millimeters in diameter, were it a round watch. So you got to keep in mind that an integrated bracelet watch, such a popular genre these days, it's going to be something that wears large, and you could see the proof in the practice right on my wrist here. This thing is out to the edge with very little clearance remaining on a wrist of 16 centimeters circumference. So you got to keep size, shape, and bracelet or strap in mind, even if you have the bare measurement of the watch from your caliper. Watch fit is critical. This is a very sensual product. If the watch doesn't fit, you will have a miserable ownership experience. So set yourself up for success. Know your wrist, know your watch, and remember, fit comes first.